So here's a video all about a character from the Legend of Zelda series that was quite literally on the verge of being erased completely from the main mechanics, per se, of a pretty popular Zelda game. This character is loved by some, yet extremely annoying to a majority of the community, which is totally based on true facts, of course. I'm so kidding. I'm D-Rock, thanks for stopping by, but man, I wonder, can you guess who we're talking about? So in a translated interview from 1999, Ocarina of Time's producer Miyamoto revealed that he heavily considered cutting Navi, or more specifically, her random hints that pop up every 5 seconds, or so it seems. Hey, I do want to preface this that I personally did not have a problem with Navi. In fact, I felt the biggest connection to her, and if I had to pick a companion over the Zelda series that I love the most, she would definitely be higher on the list. Now, what really might make you click off this video is, guess what? I loved Fi too. Ouch. Anyway, if you are sticking around, there are new Zelda sidekicks more annoying than Navi in my opinion, but Link's companion throughout the entirety of Ocarina of Time has a decade-spanning reputation for getting on players' nerves, which I can totally understand if I take a step back. Navi did have moments where I didn't need to know every 10 seconds that the Great Deku Tree had summoned me while I was trying to collect rupees and all that. Also, the fact that the on-screen prompts would never go away, if I remember correctly, unless you actually picked the option to hear what she had to say. Navi serves as a narrative purpose for the game's outset as well as navigation, hence her name, and she is extremely important to the gameplay overall. But according to Miyamoto, she wasn't important enough, well, at least at first, during the development of the game. With the game industry transitioning to 3D during the Nintendo 64 era, Ocarina of Time's Z targeting system was a huge revolution for third-person action games. I think that's why a lot of Zelda fans gravitate to Ocarina of Time so much, quite honestly. It was one of the first games on the 64 to sort of introduce the 3D visuals that have become so apparent and were then used in the series to this date. There are plenty of instances in Ocarina of Time where I felt that it was a very good idea for Miyamoto to keep Navi. For one, Navi was pretty much the targeting mechanic in the game, and she made a lot of things easier to aim at. Aside from waking Link and directing him to the Great Deku Tree, Navi was most often seen floating above whatever you would lock onto. Her other primary function was to supply you with hints throughout the game, which I touched on briefly. Miyamoto didn't really care for Navi's hint system and all but confirmed that he wanted to remove that mechanic from the game altogether. I think Miyamoto might have had some more loyal followers maybe if he decided to follow through on that, because there is a lot of people in the Zelda community that just don't like Navi. Which, again, I understand that. A lot of this information comes from a 1999 interview with Miyamoto that appeared in a Japanese Ocarina of Time strategy guide as well. It was recently translated by a repository of old Japanese game developer interviews. Conducted roughly a year after Ocarina of Time's release, Miyamoto discussed heavily a pretty big amount of topics actually, including some cut content, how the game was viewed as part of the Zelda timeline at that point, and his personal thoughts on the game's difficulty. I'll leave a link below in the description if you are interested in reading this for yourself. It was some pretty juicy information to read. With Ocarina of Time broadening the game's industry's new territory of 3 dimensions, and by hitting the like button down below this video, Navi was added as a way to help you navigate the game world, but Miyamoto didn't view the final system as satisfactory. He raised the issue of trying to have the game give advice based on individual players' unique situations, which is pretty cool, I think, noting developers would, quote, have to spend the same amount of time as they would developing an entire game to get it right. There were many features cut from the game, including working portals in an Ocarina of Time tech demo, but Navi was apparently useful enough to keep around, and Miyamoto finally made that decision. I'm just saying, Zelda crew, I think it'd be so cool to have portals in Ocarina of Time. Can you imagine just having like portals all throughout Ocarina of Time? I think that'd be pretty dope. But what do you think? Do you think they should have just scrapped Navi altogether, or do you think Miyamoto made the right call? Personally, I love that they made the decision to keep her in the game. She just gave the game so much more personality. I mean, our main protagonist, Link, who was pretty stone-faced the entire game, sure wasn't helping in that sense, right? Unless, of course, he was reacting to something, which even that was, well, lackluster. Oh man, Link. I mean, she was practically confessing her love to you, man. Why would you just run away? Navi also made it tremendously easy to target things and take them out in just a couple of shots, which probably added to how easy Ocarina of Time was. Finally, Navi, in my opinion, was sort of the main reason why we got a sequel to Ocarina of Time, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, as the main objective in that game was for Link to find his friend Navi, who left his side after the events of Ocarina of Time. And with that being said, there's actually some more pretty juicy information about Ocarina of Time that you might not know, and I know you'll find some value in it, so be sure to click on this video right here because I go over a pretty interesting plot hole that was never thoroughly explained in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.